Hello everybody, my name is Christian Quick, and welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be talking about just basic block states. I'll show you what an advanced looks like so that you kind of have an idea on what we're talking about, but we're not going to really get into advanced because we're just doing the basic one for our block. So basically, the block we have has a shape. That's really cool. So we are going to need to make a block state. All blocks do require a block state. So inside of our mod, because that's where we're calling it, we're going to make a new directory, and let's call this block states. And let's go into here, into our file that we made. If you didn't make one, it should have been the previous video from here. I could probably leave a time card or something telling you how to do it. But we're going to go into our assets, and then you'll notice that right here there's the connector, so assets, and then it's got our thing, so our namespace, not Minecraft's, and then it's called block states. So these names of these folders need to be spot on when you're making something like this. All right. Now, that is so that the code knows where it's like grabbing everything from, but inside of your block states, you're going to need to know the namespace of your block. And the namespace is basically this. What is the name of it? So if we just Control C, or I could type it out, it's really not that hard. We're going to make a new file, and we're going to call it that, but it needs to end in .json. Now, the JS stands for JavaScript because everything in your resources is written in JavaScript. The ON, I honestly couldn't tell you what it stands for. I have no idea. But we do know that it's not going to be coded the same way. Now, JavaScript, or actually Java, you basically write code, and every bit of code has a command saying this thing will happen, and then you put in a semicolon, and then you type in, this, do this, and then do semicolon. There aren't really any semicolons in here. Everything is done in parentheses. That's just a fact. And so the first thing that we need to do is search for, it's called variance, and then we're going to colon, and then, like that. What are you freaking out about? So variants are basically what is all the ways that this thing can look. Now I'm going to show you and we're going to try and keep on the lingo here. So let's go into models and a block, and let's look up what are those lamp code? Redstone lamp. Oh, it's got 2 block states? Am I in block states or am I in models? I'm in models. Okay, that's why. All right, go into block states and go and look up, try and do it again. I kind of gave away a little bit. All right, so let's look up the redstone lamp. Like this. And so a variant is basically saying, what is all of the ways that this thing can look? Either the lamp is on, and if it is on, it's going to point to this model, which is called Minecraft block, and then it's going to be called redstone lamp on, and inside of this model will point to a texture. Inside of this one, if it is not on, then the block state has to be false. Now, these are called append properties. Append properties is something that is coded in a block. And I haven't explained how append properties work yet. So for our block, we're going to basically void them like that. And that just simply means that there is no special attribute, or there is nothing attached to the block where there is nothing that will make it change its state. There is nothing that will make it look one way and then anything can happen for it to look another way. It has to always look the same. So let's just kind of Control Z. And another example I'm going to try and sort of use is, let's look up let's say a diamond block. So a diamond block has absolutely no append properties, so it is completely blank. Because no matter how I put it, it can't be on or off because it doesn't have those things attached. When it comes to stairs, they face certain directions. They can be upside down or right side up. But for these, there isn't any of those. It doesn't matter how I place it, how I'm facing. It will always be a diamond block. It'll fill up the whole block, and that's how it looks. So that is your append properties. And your model is basically, this is where it basically is saying it needs to point to a model. And then inside of here is your namespace. And right now it's all written in black and white. And so we'll have to put it in this code so that you'll be able to see it. If you simply just want to copy and paste this, you can. But there's also one more thing I want to tell you. So basically, a diamond block is the same texture on all sides. But let's talk about a beacon. A beacon, no matter how I place it, it will always look the same. However, it has more than one-sided texture. Do you think, I'm going to ask you a question, and you can try and answer this to yourself. Do you think that the texture will have an appended property for having more than one side? So the beacon has a side texture, a top texture, and a bottom texture, and they're all different. So let's look up a beacon, and we'll hit enter. And, well, it is the same. It is not an appended property if you thought it was. The part where it starts to say, what does every side of this block look like, is part of the model folder. And we haven't gotten to model. Model should be, I would hope, be the next video. And I'll talk about how models work, and then I will talk about how to make custom models, which is basically how to make custom shapes of each block that you can have. But with that in mind, this is basically just talking about the states, because it's called a block state. Is it on? Is it off? Is it upside down? Is it facing east, north? You know? And our blocks, no matter how I place a beacon, it doesn't have those attributes. So if you want to, it's probably easy if you just kind of copy and paste this. I'm going to type it out. So inside of our variants, so basically where I left off, we have these, and it's obviously going to be blank because our block, the one that we're placing, isn't going to do anything. And inside of this, we're going to need to type in model, and then colon, and then now, suddenly, I hope this thing stops turning. All right, so now I have zoomed in a good portion, because now we're going to be talking about some real stuff right here. So we basically have the green quotes, and the green quotations means that it is going to have to point to something. So the first thing that you're going to need to call is basically the namespace, right? S-P-A-C-E. And the namespace is going to look, I'm going to put in this colon, and this colon is saying it's looking for whatever this is talking about. So I'm looking for a model. It's going to look for a model in this namespace. It's going to be weird how it's checking this namespace for this model, and then it's going to bring it back to the front of it. We have our namespace, and our namespace can be basically whatever we call it. So right now I have it being called whatever my mod is. So it's HMH3. It knows it's going to be pointing at a model, so that's why I put in this colon. So we know we have our namespace, and it's looking for a model, but we don't have a models folder. Well, we're going to have to make one. And this, if we go into our 21 folder that we made, 20.1, and we go into Minecraft, this is all a list of the things that we can mess with or make in our own thing. So we have a block state, and we need to get to a models. So normally, most people think that sometimes you would have to type in models, and then inside of your folder you would go through. But you don't have to do that, because this is saying that it's looking for a models folder. So it knows that as soon as you hit colon, that you've already opened the models folder. It just needs to know what namespace you're talking about. So you've opened it up in the HMH3, and it's going to now look for, let's call it, let's say directory, M-O-D-E-L-S, models. And so now we can add whatever we want. If I say the file, let's say, is block.json. And it has to be called block because that is the name of the block that we are talking about for this model. But if it had more than one state, you can give it a name, because if you remember when we looked at the lamp, there was a lamp on and then a lamp off variation. So you can, in a basic block state, I would just recommend making it the same exact namespace as the block. That way you don't or get less confused. If I added a folder inside of models, so if they added a folders, they have block models and item models. So let's add in a folder directory called block, and let's put the block folder in block. Now, how does the code know the difference? Because it always ends in that JSON file. That's how it knows. So we have this block, and we're going to slash, meaning inside this folder should be, and then block.json. Oh, you don't actually write .json. don't actually write .json. It knows that, because that's called a file extension, but the actual file is called block. So it knows what the extension is, just like how it knows to grab that colon means to grab the model, and then the separation is that's the model, get it from this namespace, and then look for, inside that namespace, look for the models, the model folder, and then it starts opening block. So let's just kind of recap at the beginning. Inside, well, first we know that everything in here is going to be written in quotes because it's JavaScript. It wants to look for variants, and everything in these brackets is all the variants that it could be. If I put in a comma here and then put in a colon and stuff like that, then this would be a second variant, like so. This would be a second variant, but these two can't be the same. So if we had something like true, and then this would be the false model. But if there's only one model, there is no reason for that model to be there. So we can just delete all of that. So this means that there's only one model type, and then it says, all right, there's only one model type, show me the model. And so we have to point out that this is the model. And so it takes the model, looks for the namespace, looks for the folder. Well, it looks for the block. It always looks for the end first, but if it is in a folder, we have to write what folder from models going down is it in. So it knows that this is the models. If I had it in here, you can have it in here directly, but then your thing, like for Minecraft, all of their blocks and all their items would be jumbled and mixed together. That's why they have it separated. But if you wanted to call it, if you had 100 things of this and 100 things of that, that's when they start separating things. I mean, they have like 600 blocks and 600 items, Those are inaccurate numbers. I don't actually know how they are. But instead of putting, 1,200 in one folder, they say, why don't we separate them by these categories? So separating them by your unique categories is something that eventually you'll learn when to do. When you notice that you start scrolling through your hundreds of files, it's probably, if you have to start scrolling to look for something at the bottom because your list of things is so massive, then it's probably a good idea to add a folder, a variant, to try and help look for it. But hopefully, that recap was probably a lot better and smoother with everything in your brain. But if you have any questions, you can ask me down in the comments below on how block states work. This is just the basic block state. We're going to be talking about append block states in a long while, because we're going to have to go through the entire block registration, because all the blocks that we're going to be making are going to be solid full blocks. This is just so I can show you how to make everything inside of a block. But this is just the very basic block. That's just how it's going to be. But if you have any questions, you can let me know in the comments below. But this is our model, and obviously this one is blank, but this is our block state. So hopefully you know a little bit more about block states and how they work. But if you have any questions, let me know. That's going to be it for this video. So thank you guys so much for watching, and without further ado,